What do you do when they laugh behind your back? You pretend you didn't hear it. You look away. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. But deep down it does. Not because of the words, but because of what they mean. Weakness, lack of control. They saw something in you that didn't strike fear. And in a world carved by predators, that is your first mistake. They don't respect kindness. They exploit it. They don't admire vulnerability. They study it. The moment you let your guard down, they measure how deep they can sink their blade. Not into your body, into your reputation, your identity, your name. Because power, real power, begins in perception. If they don't perceive you as dangerous, they'll never treat you as valuable. You've been taught to be liked, but those who are liked are rarely feared, and those who are not feared are forgotten. You want their attention, their silence when you enter the room, their obedience without explanation. Then you need to become a force they calculate around. Not a man, not a woman, a consequence. You were told to speak up, be transparent, share your truth. And so you gave them a map of your mind, your fears, your habits. You gave them every tool to dismantle you. And now you're surprised when they use it. Machiavelli didn't write for the weak. He wrote for those who understood. In power, the ends justify the shadows. Appear kind, appear loyal, appear calm, but never be any of it unless it suits your objective. The lion roars for attention. The fox survives by silence. Silence is not the absence of speech. It's the weapon of the disciplined. When you speak less, they project more. They guess. They hesitate. They walk on your edges, not knowing how sharp the blade is. Because you didn't reveal it. That's where fear begins, not in what you say, but in what you withhold. You want dominance? Don't beg for it. Command it. Not with noise, but with energy, posture, precision. When you enter, you calculate. When you speak, it's surgical. You don't argue, you execute. That's what separates the puppet from the puppeteer. One reacts, the other plans. Look at Caesar. He didn't shout in the Senate. He let the silence do the talking. Let the aura speak louder than words. Because when your presence feels heavier than your voice, people lean in. Not to hear you, to survive you. The man who can't control himself has no right to control others. So you master your emotion, bury it under ice. Keep your heartbeat still when chaos erupts. That's when power consolidates. That's when kings are made. You will be underestimated. Let them. It's camouflage. The predator who hides in plain sight lasts longer, strikes cleaner, leaves no noise. Let them laugh. Let them gossip. That's the sound of prey distracting itself before death. Every empire begins in the shadows. Not with applause, not with permission, with silence. Calculation, cold-blooded discipline. The man who waits for the world to grant him power will die waiting. You take it, quietly, relentlessly, without flinching. They expect rage. Don't give it to them. They expect answers. Deny them. The less they know, the more they fear. Because the unknown is more terrifying than the known. That's the first rule of psychological dominance. Control the narrative by limiting access. If they can't read you, they can't predict you. If they can't predict you, they can't stop you. You become the storm they feel but can't measure. The one who walks into every room like he owns the floor beneath it. Not by force, but by presence. Because presence isn't about volume. It's about weight, aura, intensity. A man with nothing to prove radiates more threat than a man screaming to be seen. Power doesn't chase, it draws. It doesn't convince, it imposes. It doesn't react, It absorbs. You let them speak. You let them overextend. Because every word they give you is a weapon you didn't have to earn, and when the time comes to strike, you already know where to hit. Understand, this control begins before a word is spoken. It begins in the posture, the pause, the eye contact that lasts a second too long, the silence that forces them to fill the void. That's when they start revealing themselves. That's when they panic. The weak are addicted to noise. They confuse sound with strength. But those who have power don't need to prove it. They embody it. You want to dominate? Then disappear from the games they play. Stop chasing approval. Stop defending your name. Let your results speak. Let your absence speak. Because the more mysterious you become, the more influence you gain. The wolves at the top don't bark. They observe. They listen. And when they move, it's with ruthless precision. No wasted effort, no wasted words. Just the perfect strike at the perfect moment. Be like that. Become the person who moves with so much intent, they assume you know something they don't. That's how you win before the battle even starts, by being feared for reasons they can't define. The strongest men in history didn't win with brute force. They won with control. Napoleon didn't conquer Europe by screaming. He conquered it by manipulating perception, by controlling the flow of information, by understanding that power is not in the sword. It's in the hand that decides when to draw it. So ask yourself, are you the kind of man who waits for opportunities, or the one who engineers them? Do you operate on emotion or on mission? Because in this world, power doesn't go to the good. It goes to the calculated. Let's speak of fear not yours, theirs. The primal kind. The kind that lives behind their smiles and casual glances. The fear of what you might be capable of. That's the currency of control. The moment they begin to wonder, to whisper, to double-check what you meant when you said nothing at all, you've already won. You don't announce dominance. You imply it. You suggest it. You breathe it. And those around you feel it without understanding why. That's the art. The psychological blade cuts deepest when it's invisible. People don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the most certain presence. The one who moves like his decisions are already made. The one who never seeks validation, because his vision is already law in his mind. Certainty creates gravity. Gravity pulls everything toward it. People, power, resources. You don't chase influence, you magnetize it. But that only comes when you master yourself to the point where your silence becomes scripture, when your stillness triggers panic in the chaotic. Think of the jungle. The loudest animal dies first. The quietest, most patient hunter eats when everyone else is starving. You become that hunter. You pick your moment. You watch them talk, flinch, overcompensate. You let them mock. And then you strike not to hurt, but to remind them why you're not to be tested again. Most people reveal themselves in a single conversation. Not you. You make every word carry weight. You train your voice to move like a scalpel, not a hammer. Every sentence should have an edge. No wasted breath. No emotion you didn't design. They should leave your presence second-guessing their every move. Not because you threatened them, but because your silence forced them to confront their own fear. The fear of what you might know, what you might do, what you've already planned. This isn't about arrogance, it's about architecture. Building an image so disciplined, so deliberate, that even your weaknesses look like weapons. You wear your past like armor. You use your failures as blueprints, not excuses, not stories. Data, lessons. Every loss taught you something they'll never see, because they were too busy laughing while you were studying. And now, you move differently. You walk with the calm of a man who has nothing to prove but everything to take. You understand the battlefield. Not just the one in front of you, but the psychological one. The room, the tension, the glances, the shifts in tone. You see it all. You map it in real time. And that's why you're dangerous. The man who understands the invisible game controls the visible outcome. They'll tell you to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to be soft enough for others to feel safe. But safety is not your goal. Influence is. Power is. Control is. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be obeyed, to be calculated around, not pitied, not hugged, feared. That word fear it offends the weak. But for you, it's the most honest form of respect. They might admire the charming, they might cheer for the friendly, but they obey the one they fear disappointing. That's who you become. The presence that shifts their behavior, without touching them, without speaking. You do this by becoming rare. Understand scarcity breeds value. Predictability breeds contempt. The more they see you, the less they notice you. The more they hear you speak, the less they listen. So you disappear. Intentionally, you create absence. You make your silence scream. Think of the strategist. He never reveals his next move. His entire power lies in the unknown. He lets the others dance, speak, reveal themselves. And then, with one move, he destroys the illusion of their control. You must learn to love the tension, the waiting, the build-up, because power doesn't rush, it arrives. They want you loud, emotional, visible. It makes you easier to control, easier to label. And the moment they think they understand you, they box you in, limit you. But the man who refuses to explain himself, he terrifies them. You will watch them try to provoke you, to get a reaction. Don't give them the satisfaction. A reaction is a confession. It tells them what matters to you, what offends you, what breaks you. But when you give them nothing, they break themselves trying to understand what's behind the wall. Power is maintained through mystery. Control is preserved through distance. Let them gossip. Let them speculate. The more questions they ask about you, the more control you have. Because control is not about dominating others physically. It's about controlling what they think when they're not with you. You want to dominate the room? Then learn to dominate the story they tell about you. And you do that by being just unpredictable enough to make them cautious, just cold enough to make them hesitate, just sharp enough that they can't forget you. In this game, you don't win by being liked, you win by being undeniable. You're not here to be part of the crowd. You're here to rise above it, to walk alone if necessary. Because every great strategist, every Caesar, every Napoleon, every shadow king understood one thing. You must become untouchable, not just in strength, in mind, in presence, in mystery. They will test you. That's inevitable. People push to see where the edge is, to see if your confidence is hollow, if your silence hides fear, or if it hides fire. Most men collapse under pressure because they've built no foundation. They chase approval, they adapt to please, and every adaptation erodes their power. But not you. You've already buried the need to be liked. That weakness is gone. In its place, control of your image, your thoughts, your reactions. That is your fortress. And when the tests command they will, you don't flinch. You let the pressure expose them. Not you. They raise their voice. You lower yours. They get emotional. You get colder. Why? Because the more they feel, the more they reveal. And the less you do, the more they fear. That's leverage. And leverage is how kings are made. You never argue. You outmaneuver. You never beg. You outlast. You don't explain your moves. You make them pay attention to the silence between each one. Imagine this. You walk into a room. You don't smile. You don't look around for approval. You don't greet them first. You sit, still, unshaken. The people around you adjust their tone, their posture, their behavior, not because you said anything, but because your presence made them question their own. That's power. True dominance isn't about force. It's about alignment. Everything you say, everything you do, every glance must align with the image of control. If one piece breaks, the illusion breaks. And make no mistake, illusion is essential. Reality is irrelevant. Perception is everything. Machiavelli taught this. He knew the world didn't follow the just, the moral, the good-hearted. It followed the one who understood the stage, the one who knew when to lie, when to disappear, when to appear stronger than he was, and when to be stronger than anyone expected. That's your playbook now. You don't build your reputation through announcements. You build it through shadows, through restraint, through selective violence, psychological, emotional, strategic. A single decisive move can shape years of perception, so don't waste your power on petty battles. Wait for the one that matters, then strike so clean they never think of crossing you again. In every interaction, you should be asking, who controls the frame? If it's not you, you're already losing. You never enter another man's frame. You create your own. And if they resist, you don't push. You let them exhaust themselves. Because the more energy they waste, the easier it is to walk past their defenses. This is not kindness. It's calculation. And the one who calculates longer, colder, wins. You weren't born with power. No one is. It's taken, constructed, layer by layer, scar by scar, not just on the outside, but within. You become powerful the day you stop being reactive, the day you stop letting the world decide who you are. That's when control begins. Most people walk through life governed by impulse, emotion, insecurity. They speak before thinking, act before understanding, reveal before watching, and they wonder why they're overlooked, why they're replaceable, why no one respects them. It's because they've made themselves easy to read, easy to dismiss. You must become unreadable, not emotionless controlled, not detached selective. You don't show up for every battle. You show up when victory is certain, and your presence alone shifts the outcome. Think of it like this. You're building a weapon, a psychological one. Every word you speak is either sharpening that blade or dulling it. Every moment you hesitate is an opening. Every unnecessary apology chips away at your aura. So you eliminate the fluff. You speak in sharp lines. You carry yourself like a man who doesn't bluff because he doesn't need to. And when others try to bait you into weakness, you don't defend. You observe. That's the difference between power and insecurity. One waits, the other explains. Never explain. You don't owe anyone access to your thoughts. You don't owe them vulnerability. Vulnerability is a currency. It's only valuable when you control who spends it. When you hand it out freely, you devalue yourself. You become common, and the common are forgotten. So you study the room. You identify the weak, the loud, the deceptive. You store what they give away. You analyze their tells, and you say nothing. Because data is power. The more you know and the less you reveal, the more lethal you become. It's not about pretending to be above emotion. It's about choosing when and how to weaponize it. A controlled burst of anger at the right moment creates silence. A calculated act of generosity creates loyalty. But none of it is random. Everything you do must be rooted in purpose. You are not here to feel good. You are here to win. You can't dominate anything until you dominate yourself. That means training your habits like a soldier trains his blade. Precision, repetition, ruthlessness. You cut away every soft part of you that seeks comfort, validation, or emotional rescue. You become the man others watch in silence. Not because you told them to, but because your very presence told a story they couldn't ignore. And when they try to understand you good, let them try. Let them waste years chasing a ghost they'll never touch. Let them underestimate you. That is your camouflage. When they think you're simple, soft, or slow to strike perfect, that gives you time. Time to assess. Time to build. Time to maneuver through the cracks they don't even see. Most power is built in plain sight, disguised as passivity. You're not the loudest. You're the last to speak. You're not the fastest. You're the one who endures. You don't flash. You don't panic. You let them run themselves dry trying to dominate a game they don't even understand. Because this isn't about speed. It's about leverage. And leverage belongs to the one who knows when to hold still, when to make them squirm, when to force them to act out of emotion, while you sit with cold clarity and pick them apart. This is what makes you different. You're not chasing, you're positioning. It's not about the number of moves, it's about the weight of the next one. One calculated move can silence a room, break an alliance, shift an entire dynamic. But you only get that move if you've earned the discipline to wait for it. Let them celebrate early. Let them feel safe. That's when they're weakest. Comfort dulls the instincts, makes them sloppy. They don't sharpen their tools when they think they've already won. You do. Every second they spend relaxing is a second you spend refining. When they blink, you strike. That's how dominance is claimed. Not all at once, but piece by piece, moment by moment, until one day, without ever raising your voice, the room tilts in your direction, and no one questions why, because they've already felt it. It starts with the small things. You stop reacting to disrespect, not because you didn't notice, but because you calculated the moment where your silence would cut deeper than any reply. You stop attending every conflict. You stop explaining your value. You stop chasing apologies. Instead, you build distance. You build mystery. You make your absence speak louder than your presence ever could. That's when they start to ask questions. Where did he go? Why isn't he responding? Did we go too far? Good. Let doubt do the work for you. Let their fear of what you might do be greater than anything you ever say. Because the moment they realize they no longer control your emotions, your attention, or your energy, they've lost. You've taken the most powerful position there is. Emotional independence, strategic presence, commanding absence. You've become the variable, the danger, the ghost with a blade. Now you understand the truth. Power isn't something you hold in your hand. It's something you plant in their mind. It's the unease they feel when they hear your name. It's the calculation in their eyes when you walk in. It's the silence that falls before you speak. You've become the storm they can't predict, the one they hoped would pass over them. But you don't pass. You watch. You listen. And when the moment arrives, you move with such precision they never see it coming. That's the psychology of dominance. It's not force, it's inevitability. You do not need to win every battle. You need to make them fear the cost of even starting one. And to do that, you must carry weight without motion, pressure without words, attention in your presence that warps the behavior of everyone around you. People will say you're intimidating, cold, distant, good. That means they feel it. That means the mask is working. That means you've transcended the need for explanation. They may not like you, but they will never forget you. And that's more valuable than affection will ever be. There's a reason wolves don't howl at every moon. They conserve energy for the hunt. They remain silent, calculating, until it's time to kill. You are no longer a civilian in this world. You are a strategist, a shadow, a force that bends the room with presence alone. You will lose people on this path. They'll call you selfish, arrogant, too quiet, too sharp. Let them leave. Because every empire begins with exile. You lose the masses to gain control. You give up comfort to gain clarity. And once you've seen the game for what it is, once you've studied its rhythm, its deceit, its rules, there's no going back. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be remembered, respected, calculated into every decision they make. Not because you asked, but because they can't afford not to. And when the time comes, when the room is watching, and the tension cuts like a knife, you won't need to raise your voice. You won't need to posture. You won't need to explain. You'll look. You'll pause. You'll speak. And they will listen. Because dominance doesn't shout. It whispers. Power is not declared. It's assumed.